All right, so it is 10 a.m. in the morning in Malaysia. So good morning to everyone. So to our honorable speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. So I'd like to extend warm welcome to all of you joining us in this webinar. We call it as Webinar Asia Pacific OSH Practice, or in short, we call it as WAPOSH. So it is our 6th times running this program successfully. So it is a monthly program that we run to encourage or which aim to stimulate dialogue on the importance of ensuring safety and health at work, as well as exchanging informations, ideas, its experience in regards with occupational safety and health matters towards a common aspirations, which is to achieve a safer and healthier workplace. And first of all, I would like to introduce my name before I put this thing. So my name is Kelim. So on behalf of the organizer, so I'm the moderator of this webinar. So I'm excited to be hosting these sessions today. So let's march forward to Industry 4.0. There are over 200 participants enrolled for this webinar today across a few countries. They are from Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, India, Philippines, UK, Korea, Indonesia, Macau, and so on. So on behalf of the organizer, so Social Resources Development Institute, SRDI, and SHEA Academic Consultancy, we'd like to express our sincere gratitude to our supporting members. Our co-organizer, they are Malaysia's Occupational Safety and Health Practitioner Association, MOSHPA from Malaysia, Institute of Occupational Safety and Health Singapore branch, IOSH Singapore, UCSI University from Malaysia, the Hong Kong Institute of Clerk of Work, the Hong Kong Development Professional Associations. On top of that, we do have supporting institutions without monetary support. International Power Access Federations, United Kingdom, World of Safety and Health Asia, Singapore and Middle East, Macau Universities of Science and Technology, Schools of Liberal Arts, Hong Kong Institutions of Engineers, Safety Specialists, Committee, Hong Kong, Authorized Signatory and Technical Director Society, Hong Kong, Material Tax Company Limited from Hong Kong, Macau, China, International Professional Safety and Health Environmental Solutions, Hong Kong Associations of Risk Management and Safety, and last but not least is the Chartered Institutions of Highway of Transportations. Today, we are very pleased and honored to invite 5 industrial experts to share with us their knowledge and experience in relation to occupational safety and health subjects. So our event started at 9:30, right? And tentatively target to end by approximately 1:15 in the afternoon. All right. First of all, we are honored to invite Engineer Ibrahim Md, the directors of WAPOSH Selangor, Malaysia. So he's going to present to us on mainstreaming OSH culture from industry to educations, and followed by Engineer Dr. Gordon Leung from Hong Kong. So the chairman of Chartered Institute of Highway and Transportation Hong Kong branch. So he is going to speak with us on help and on adopting warm mixed exports for road construction in Hong Kong. Whereas the third speaker will be Mr. J.C. Sekar, the Executive Committee member of IOSH Singapore branch, and he is also the CEO of AcuiZen Technologies Singapore. So he is going to present for us on redefining workplace safety for resilient operations. The fourth speaker will be Dr. Sangeeta Kaur, the founder of Emerging Journey Asia, Malaysia. So he's the professional counselor, also the mental health advocate. So she's going to speak with us on the topic of positive mental well-being promotes a safer workplace. And last but not least, we have Professor Dr. Shamsul Bahri, Mohd Tamrin, so from Malaysia. He is the immediate past president of Human Factors and Economic Society of Malaysia. So he's going to present to us on economic education in Asia, the current assessment methodology, future competency as assessor, and international certifications. And last but not least, we have our Dr. Kanagaraja Raman, he's the president of MOSHPA Malaysia. So he's doing the closing remark. Right. So without further ado, let us welcome Ibrahim Md, the director of WAPOSHP Selangor, Malaysia, to present on his topic on mainstreaming OSH culture from industry to educations. Let's join me in welcoming Ibrahim Md for his presentations.
So while we're going to upload the screen. Can I see the screen?
Yes.
I just say hi to everybody.
Hi.
How are you doing, everybody?
Yeah, we are doing great.
Good, bagus.
Meaning to say that you can listen to me and can see my slide.
Boleh.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, let's start. Now, I'm talking about mainstreaming of culture from industry to education is very important. As you know, education should start as early as possible. Anyway, for safety and health, it's not the formal should be in quite early after college. That's the best. They can absorb whatever knowledge about safety and health. Anyway, I'm going to touch about my department have done, especially in safety and health. As you know, most countries, especially those developed countries, also developing countries, has integrated the safety and health concept in their school curriculum. In Malaysia, as a developed nation, is subjected to pressure and major trial as it faces the challenge of the 21st century. As you know, we have to move forward. We need to navigate a more challenging and competitive global environment, not only Malaysia as well as the whole world. By doing that, we need to sensitizing the student to health and safety at work. It's not only giving young people skill, the knowledge to help them keep themselves abreast with those before they start their working life. It also seen as important element towards the global of building prevention culture for the future. And now we are more towards the prevention culture. Things have to go on. We cannot wait. We have to stop whatever hazard that is happening in the working environment. Okay, for future engineers, architect, medical professional, and business administrator, the manager will all need to keep account of occupational safety and health aspect in their working life. It's very important. Not only to mention these people, but actually it's our work as a father and mother also. Okay, we move forward. My content of my paper is about OSH development in Malaysia, importance of OSH, implementation of OSH in Malaysia. The other state is on OSH current status in Malaysia. We like to share our statistic, especially the country Selangor that I'm looking after. OSH risk management, we touch a bit. Malaysia is going forward to this risk management. It's very important. I think somebody will have to talk on this risk management. We can call the expert maybe by Mission Mohd. OSH education and wishes. That's the final slide from me. Okay, talking about OSH development in Malaysia. Let the thing go on first. In Malaysia, we started our safety and health thing is in 1876. Okay, we start with the boiler ordinance, that's the 19th. Okay, and then the second loop, where we have our formal law on safety and health. After a lot of things that happens, no, we need to have a very concrete law on to rule safety and health. Okay, as you see towards the end of the order, 1967 Factory and Machinery Act, or well known as FMA in Malaysia, we govern laws on safety and machinery. We have a specific law on that, and this law is still being enforced. Okay, and then we move forward to 1994. After several years, many years, then we have the Occupational Safety and Health Act, OSHA 1994. From there, we DOSH plan a lot of things, and we put it in the master plan, implementation of master plan 2010 to 2015. We have it. Okay, we have it, and it really works. And even though there are some hiccup here and there, which we cannot sustain, we have to move forward now. Now it's towards the end already, 2020, and my office, DOSH Malaysia, is planning to have another master plan for another 5 years, hoping that education will be again, will be the main subject in our OSH 2020. And then in the pipeline now, a lot of people are saying that FMA 1967, the law is quite old. So you are going to migrate the law together with OSHA to be one law. So our nation, industry will not get confused with that. So this is the development in Malaysia about safety and health. Started in 1876 until now. Here we go to the next slide. Importance of OSH. OSH is so important. Let the thing go first. Okay. This is what all people must know. It's real. It's reality. When you work, we are always encountering all these hazards, physical, chemical, biology, and psychosocial. This is normal one. Okay. Those emerging, new emerge kind of hazard, maybe we can deal later, but this is a physical, the normal one. And impact person in Malaysia. Okay, in Malaysia, there are 32 million Malaysian population, 1.35 million employer, and 15.32 million employee. This is the burden, not to say burden, it's our duty to ensure this, that the end, the final one, 15.32 million employee are safe and healthy while working at work. Okay, and of course, this is our data. The consequences of accident, statistic in 2019, accident 40,000, almost 41,000, is about 112 per day. Okay, and then the fatality is about 2 per day. So this is where we are really putting our effort to ensure that these two will go down as far as possible. And we did it good because in OSH MP 2020 we have our target to reduce to certain rate that we accept, that we can accept. Okay. Anyway, with on safety, optional safety poisoning reporting of this optional disease and poisoning, we would like to see the thing go more than what we received in 2015. We know normally safety and health on the physical thing, okay, but on health, you know, on health is normally under reporting. So we are pushing forward. We're trying our hard, very best to ensure that these people will report to us on optional and disease while doing their work. So something like 27 per day reported to us until now. That's the statistic I'd like to share. Maybe those friends from other countries know that we are doing the thing, and you can also follow what we are doing. Okay, we go to the next slide. Direct impact is normal. Still, everywhere we are talking about the iceberg theory. Okay, ringgit Malaysia is our currency lah. RM1, ringgit Malaysia, ringgit 5 to 50, and 1 to 5. Just anyway, the indirect impact is 3.27 million local workers is being insured, and they are compensated. So, not to say loss of money lah, but this is the money that the opportunity to save that money. Okay, and 7.5 million were foreign workers insured. The same thing also. We don't only look after Malaysian, but also the foreign workers. Whoever they are, from whatever country, that's the amount that we have compensated to them until 2017. The statistic is from SOSO, Social Security Agency, and also our Labour Office, Jabatan Tenaga Kerja. The global, the figure is 53.3 billion. That is by ILO in the year 2017. It's something like GDP, a loss of money about 3.95%. That's from ILO that we use ILO figure to have control on such the impact, direct impact from accident. Okay. Okay, we go to the next slide. Implementation OSH in Malaysia. Malaysia, we have our regulatory framework. With doing that, we are saying yes to ILO, ILO Convention on the ratification of what they are their convention. This is the slide I'm going to show. I'm not going to detail it out, the rest, but I'm going to detail what we have in Malaysia. Main legislation on OSH, we have OSHA 1994 and also Factory Machinery Act 1967. Those are the regulations that are being gazetted under the both law. 8 regulation and 2 orders, 2 code of practice, 52 guideline, 16 regulation. These are the things that we are doing. So something like orders, when you talk about orders, is more on, at the moment we are really focusing on construction side. Our Director General, who's going to talk, deliver his paper later on, his order is on the construction side. So these 2 orders are very important to ensure that the unnecessary topple of tower crane, whatever can happen, or maybe the temporary structure under design or something being happen, maybe knocked by something, can collapse and kill people. So these 2 orders, we have already showed out to the industry that they know what we want, those one, and also they also know what would happen if it's still to happen. So the rest I'm not going to talk. These are the framework, the connection, whatever that we have. Okay, we go to the next slide. Systematic approach. What we have is a planned approach actually, starting from those earlier days by LO. We have national policy recently signed by our number 1, our Prime Minister, Tun Mahathir. It's national policy. It's not just a factory policy, safety set. It's national policy. And our government officer, our government department also now looking forward to have such thing. And there are some moves from our central agency that risk management risk management to be one of their critical priority subject. All department are going to have. There are some meeting between our central agency with our department. And then we have national profile that we come up with nationwide to know where we are in 2016. Okay, I think this one you can serve our portal and you can read the national profile. The next one is the national program. Number 3 is very important. This is where we are. Those still relevant. The plan is there, and we have to work out a plan. Now 2020 is going to end by December. Next year we need to have one more long planning, 5 years planning. We study from this coming soon 2020 end of the 2020 plan, master plan. We are going to use that with some editing, with all the new aspects of safety and health. They'll put in the new OSH-MP, we call it OSH-MP 2025. So that is the thing that we are doing now, the approach that we are implementing to ensure safety and health on the people at work in Malaysia. Okay, the next slide is more on the education, training, and raising awareness. As you can see, the tertiary education in Malaysia. Earlier, when DOSH or our department, put things enforced, took things enforced when we have the law. This university, whatever, they are not well known about safety and health. So just maybe 10 years ago, they started to know. Okay. They started to know about the education on safety and health. So we have public university, we have private university, and also public-private collaboration. Where we can study about safety and health. The syllabus, the module are all being verified by our learn officer in issue to verify, to ensure that the syllabus can produce good, for example, safety and health officer. So there are, I think, a lot of foreign students also coming to Malaysia to study in Malaysia about safety and health. Okay, this is the something on the education in Malaysia. Okay, the current status in Malaysia, as I mentioned just now earlier, we are going to share a bit on the statistics. Okay, these are the statistics for Malaysia for 2019. We try to have that number, as I mentioned earlier, 112 per day, kind of accident happen a day. And also 2 fatality a day. We like to reduce this two. We like to reduce the figure as far as possible. As you know, that figure, the impact is on the workers. Okay, the consequences is also on the workers, and maybe some public to the public also lah. When involved with construction site or some kind of activities that involve something like explosion, whatever, it will hurt the public lah. Okay, you can see down there, that is the consequences, accident rate, fatality rate, optional, and the disease and poisoning. Okay, I hope some people can take figure, not to compare, but to have some feeling why we need as safety and health practitioner to ensure that this kind of statistic must be reduced as far as possible to make it low. It's just like COVID, like you want to, the peak, we have to make it smooth back, not to pick up again. So something like that also. Okay, this is a stick for our Malaysia. I like to compare what we have in my country, the country that I'm looking after. There's a statistic, 3.4 million, 9,000 something, 27 per day rate of accident, per day of accident happening, and 7.2 fatality per day. We recorded 79 fatality in 2019. Okay, for example, my Director General give our target, reduce it. So we are trying very hard to reduce it to 52 fatality happening in Malaysia. That's a target. But if possible, it's zero actually. But there's a target that we are really working very hard to ensure it will happen. Okay, so that's the rate that the bottom slide. The bottom figure is on the rate. Okay, in Selangor to compare with the national figure. Okay. Okay. By doing that, we have the statistic. I hope students who are in this group on this webinar can zoom. It's not so much on the statistic, it's very important statistic, but we are going to zoom on the sectorial type of activity. Okay? Construction, the bottom figure there. Construction, utility, transport, storage, communication, finance, insurance, real estate business, to compare with the line that happening from the statistic of accident as well as fatality. So from there, those zooming on this kind of sector, okay? We hope we can see, we can learn, and we will put some kind of control to ensure that accident rate that happening all those sectors can be reduced as possible, as far as possible, as low as possible. Okay, now I see construction site, we know. When it happens, it will kill. So by doing more, excuse me, inspection and enforcement, we know that it will reduce. Okay. Earlier presentation, not here, but some presentation that I've done earlier to mention, hazard kills. Very simple topic. Hazard kills. Kill the hazard before it kills us. That was my paper. So by doing what you call it, the hazard education, whatever, we can know the thing, and it will happen if we don't control. So control is very important here. So gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, as you see, by sectorial link, the thing, we know that we have to do something as the enforcer. We don't have to do something. For example, like manufacturing, you see, it's a peak there. There's a peak on the number of accidents happening in manufacturing. Okay, we have put more effort on that. Okay, talking about fatality, construction, we put more effort on construction. You know, construction of fall of person, collapse of buildings in construction. You know, the force work collapse. You know, scaffold collapse, trenching, no control on the trenching, open cut. There's no shoring, something like that. You know, that can kill people. We will put our effort on that. Okay, I hope this slide gives some kind of imagination where we can start our work. We can zoom on that. Okay, the next slide. Another thing, things to ponder, fact to ponder. So, personally, I don't like this kind of thing to happen. what I meant is multiple fatality incident. We can always imagine the incident. And will happen, there are a lot of people will get involved, especially in construction site. We take example doing concreting for the slab, you know. The formwork, if the formwork is not designed properly, with all the force work under there to support the formwork together with the concrete, slurry, cement, concrete plus water, you know, and it's a kind of slurry, it can move anywhere, you know, it's just like water. If there is holes in the what you call it, the formwork, definitely all the slurry, the concrete, the what you call it, the wet concrete will go to the hole, and the weight is just like a point, a pin point there, and the force work will collapse. That's one example. So I like to share this thing. 2018 first case, structure of the tower crane boom broken while lifting building material. One fatal, one severe damage of boom structure. We are lucky, one only. Okay. And second case in 2018, leaking ammonia gas in an ice making factory. Using ammonia, you know, leak. So there's a big fall of the ammonia, 2 fatal, 5 severe. So you can see that it's not the number of what you call it, the consequences, you know, the impact on the people, but it's more on how we are going to control this thing. That's the kind of education I hope everybody understand. So please help DOSH, especially in Malaysia, to ensure that thing will happen. The second, in 2019, there was a concrete span collapse in construction site. Case 2, explosion and fire on automatic spray painting. A lot of things that they need. I heard it's about 2 million Malaysian ringgit burnt, and they have to renew the thing. Another 2.3 million. It's double the thing. It's about 5 million. Just to put back the manufacturing facility. Okay, the whole building, half the building collapsed, you know, this happened. Okay, 2020, explosive substance manufacturing factory. Lucky they have big bunker, the explosion go up only lah, not to the side. And only three people are severely hurt, no fatality here. But factory building for operation completely destroyed. The bunker, as far as my what do you call it, the investigator, my investigation officer informed me, the bunker also need to be renewed to repair. So I think they are not going to put it again the what do you call it, the manufacturing of this explosive at the area anymore. Okay, case number 2 in 2020, workers drowning in confined space in the fisherman boat. Fisherman boat, you know, rotten fish, emits gases, very toxic gases, and there are 4 fatality to 2 breathing difficulty. You see, these are what I meant by multiple fatality incident. As enforcer, we cannot control everything, we cannot enforce, but I hope those OSH practitioners working, they have to know this thing and they can control. So this is the figure, you can see, which me personally is afraid of. I'm afraid of this multiple fatality incident. Okay, next we go to offshore risk management, touch a bit. I like to introduce, not to promote, ISO 45001, organization that are serious about improving safety and health, reducing workplace risk, and creating better, safer working conditions. This is the concept that ISO 45000. The next slide is on Israeli technology. It is the thing, and the thing come out one by one. You can read, you can understand. Okay, the first one, systematic approach to manage. Second, identify, evaluate. Meaning to say, determine the means of reducing risk to an acceptable level. Okay. Next is more effective to eliminate hazard. More effective method to eliminate hazard. Yeah. To protect employees, contractors, and other persons at the place of work. It's one of the motto that the ILO said in one of their OSH week. Okay. As early as design stage. Okay. So the system approach to manage, identify, eliminate, protect will be determined or considered in as early as design stage. So risk management that we would like to see in the future will all be governed by during the design stage. Okay, we are not going to to enforce the thing to ensure that you have no. It's all will be done during the design stage. Okay, that's the future way forward that DOSH is going to introduce, promote, introduce, and enforce. Okay, this is also risk management for future in Malaysia. Okay. Okay, this is the process that we pick up from ISO 45000. If our friends from other countries would like to have some kind of what you call it standard, is okay, but we are going to use 45000 in Malaysia. Okay, preparation, risk assessment, implementation, record and review. I think everybody can read from there. Okay, is a loop. Okay, so it's a loop. It's not to have it done close. Okay, but you have to always check and assess. Okay, this is the kind of loop that we are going to do. If they say they use 45,000, it's okay. But if they use some kind other kind of standard, we have to go through this step: preparation, risk assessment, implementation, record, review. Okay, and of course it will be governed by design as what required under ISO 45000. So gentlemen, this is also a risk management process. Okay, OSH. In education earlier during the chit chat, some of our speaker mentioned about this is for the young. This for the young, okay lah. This for the young. I touch a bit on the kind of concept. Young workers up to the age 25 years old have an elevated risk of having workplaces accident. This is the kind of thing that negatively we tell them, if you are not ready by this year, 24 years old, before you step up to the work, you don't know about risk management, you will get involved with accident. This is the kind of twisting of the mind. They have to prepare themselves. They have to prepare on OSH, OSH things before they start their working life. Okay, I hope listener on there don't get confused with that. It's just a twisting of the mind. Negative statement to ensure positive way forward. Okay, if the student, when they want to start their work, they have to know about safety and health. It's not about the technical that learn in university. Okay, they can be good in their academic. Maybe the first day they will be killed if they don't know about safety and health. That's a fact, it's a fact. So we twist a bit so that negative statement will give positive preparation to our young generation. Okay. Okay. education, everybody knows, is an essential role to play in enabling the great majority of people to tend toward the state. Okay? Education to an extent by preparing new generation. If we have a very, not to say good, good but not to the future requirement, no good also. We have to prepare something good now for the future preparation. So this is what I meant in my slide. Education by preparing new generation, the syllabus, the module, the way forward, whether technical or theory, practical, we have to zoom in the future kind of safety and health working life. Okay, this is my understanding about education in safety and health. Okay, the next slide. Young children, where we like to touch a bit some cartoon there. General concept of health, safety, and well-being, as well as social aspect. This is our one thing. Me and my officer come up with this. So young children, we have to tell them about this general concept of health, safety, and well-being, as well as social aspect. Okay, they are growing fast. They have to know all these things. Hot, cold, COVID also they know now. So we need to have some kind of education, formal or informal, for our young children. So next is the teenagers. Our thinking is to put focus gradually acquiring social and professional skill, promoting the concept of safety, health, and well-being at work. Okay, meaning to say that preparation for capability in working environment. This is our area. I'm with Toy. This is what you want. Okay, if a doctor, maybe they have some kind of way forward to ensure doctors can work as a doctor. For safety and health is a general thing. Doctors also have to know about safety and health while they are working. Okay, engineers, they have to know. Meaning to say that whoever they are, when they are teenagers, they have to acquire all these things. Safety and health, the professional skill promoting health, safety, and well-being at work. And they have to focus and they have to acquire this kind of skill. Okay, teenagers, from young school children to teenagers, they are adult, almost adult. They know what they are learning, and they need to know also safety and health. Okay, this is on the teenagers. Okay, now they start to work. Young workers more aware of risk and how to prevent them. They are trained. They learn in university. They have some kind of formal courses. Maybe the NGOs are doing. WAPOSHP is promoting whatever university is telling. So they are more aware about the risk and how to prevent them, to help reduce accident to young workers. They are very aggressive. They have a lot of energy. We don't want them to be killed or what you call it, handicap due to accident at work. We want them to work until their working period ends. We want that, but we are not going to allow them to be killed or hurt by any accident that happen while they are doing. So this young worker, yeah, we would like to see that as we, the industry grows, the development goes, we want the workers to be safety and good health, in good health. Okay, it's about the end of my presentation. This is the last slide, I think. Yeah, this is the last slide. Mentioning OSH education approach aims to, that's my wishes, my wishes. Mentioning OSH into education approach aim is to integrate OSH training, OSH risk management, safety education and safety and health awareness into education as early as possible. This idea is to mainstream a culture of prevention before young people become young workers. Okay. I'd like to touch a bit on our OSH MP, OSH Master Plan 2020, where we call it OSH for you, OSH for university students, and also OSH at TVET, TVET, technical vocational training, at least a day, at least 4 hours, 4 hours. We train them the basic thing about safety and health. 4 hours we cannot do so much, hoping that they will learn after that. That is in our OSH MP, they're going to be end this year. It's one of the strategy, and it's very popular, for OSH for university, OSH for you, we call it, as well as OSH at TVET. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, with that statement, I end up my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. Hope to see you if I'm invited again. With that, I end up my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Engineer Ibrahim Md, so for your speech and also presentations. It's very interesting. So by knowing that, by your presentations, having the knowledge about why a safe workplace is essential and the know-how about what to look out for in terms of danger in the workplace and the informations that we needed, to remove the risk of the employee, where they are exposing to. And it's about what we are trying to achieve through educations and also sharing of safety. So it is important to impart the knowledge of safety even during the young ages. So it is very important. So we look forward and move forward to that. Right, so ladies and gentlemen, so is there any questions you would like to ask to our speaker before we move on to the next speaker? Seems like there's no questions. So well, we appreciate Engineer Ibrahim Md, the Director DOSH of Selangor, of you making our time in your busy schedule to speak with us on the topic of mainstreaming from industry to education. Thank you once again. So let's put a thumbs up to our first speaker, right? To show our appreciation to him to speak with us.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right, so you may stop sharing your slides, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So let's move on to the next speaker. So well, it is our greatest honor to be able to invite our next speaker, Engineer Dr. Gordon Leung from Hong Kong, the Chairman of Chartered Institute of Highway and Transportation's Hong Kong branch, who is going to share with us on the health benefit on adopting warm mix asphalt for road constructions in Hong Kong. So pass over the mic to Engineer Dr. Gordon Leung to present his topic. Let's join me in welcoming Engineer Dr. Gordon Leung. So you may go ahead. Dr. Gordon. Dr. Gordon Leung. Engineer Dr. Gordon Leung, are you there? We can see your slide, but it's just that your audio has been muted.
So can you hear me?
Okay, right, clear.
Okay,
Thank you.
So,
I'll pass over the stage to you.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. So I'm Gordon. Okay, I'm from Hong Kong. So I'm the chairman of the Chartered Institution of Highways and Transportation. And let me introduce a little bit of myself. I'm not really a safety practitioner, although I actually touch upon quite a bit of safety when I was an engineer after my graduated from the civil engineering degree. So, but I have been working with the highway industry, especially for developing new materials, new highway or pavement materials for Hong Kong for the last 10 to 15 years. So I've been closely working with the Highways Department in Hong Kong, the R&D division. So basically the last 10 to 15 years is to work together with them to write specifications for the government. So basically, Hong Kong is a little bit lag behind. I actually want to listen to some voices from all over the places about your, if you know about the subject, okay, about how your asphalt industry is developing, because we are actually getting into developing something called warm mix asphalt in the next few years or decades. So, you know, as probably you know that if you work in the highway industry, you know that asphalt is usually quite hot. So, which is not particularly good probably for the environment. Okay. So a little bit of background about Hong Kong, and probably that is quite similar to the rest of the world as well. So roads in Hong Kong is usually what we call is flexible pavement or asphaltic pavements. So basically the roads are built by the asphalt materials, those black materials, or we call, okay. So Hong Kong is actually quite a small place, okay. If you compare that to Malaysia or, you know, or mainland China, there's nowhere near it, okay. So we only have about a little bit more than 2,000 kilometers of roads in Hong Kong. But the characteristic is that actually asphalt roads actually occupies about 75 to 80% of the total pavement in Hong Kong. I think it would be the same in Singapore and Malaysia as well, because the beauty of asphalt pavement is because asphalt is a material which is quite easily laid on ground, and especially in Hong Kong, because it's very congested, it's very busy, traffic is very, very busy. So we don't allow for long hours of closure for roads. So everything needs to be done in a very short time, you know, for example, we don't allow for very long closure. So we only allow after midnight, you know, off rush hour to construct your road. Okay, so 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning, and then you have to basically off you go. You know, the road has to be opened for traffic. So basically the asphalt is hot. So after it is laid, when it is cooled down to room temperature, and then the material is hardened. So basically it's ready to be opened for traffic. So that's why it is quite beautiful. And also a lot of utilities underground is actually underneath the road. So there's one particular job I've been working with consultant. I've been working with OFARA before. Basically, you can't find any place to put your new utilities if you are actually in a central district in Hong Kong. So if there's any utilities, repair, emergency works, so asphalt road is actually very easy, can be easily dug up and then replaced by new materials. So you cannot actually do it with concrete. So basically, this is the left-hand side, is you can see that this is quite a good building. I really love, is the tallest building ICC in Hong Kong. So I just use that picture as that. So basically that's the asphalt road, okay? So on the right-hand side is the road structure. Usually we have. Some people will say that the road in Hong Kong is really over-designed a little bit, because we actually build quite thick road. So basically we have some kind of porous layer for draining the water. Okay, we have the wearing course, base course, and then finally we have something called the road base, which is the main structural layer. So that actually lists out about approximately the thickness. So that is about from 250 mm to about 450 mm. But actually, the nowadays the design probably exceed that. So to cater for longer duration of functional life. So basically that adds up to about 500 to about 700 mm for that. So people will say that it's actually quite thick, but actually the roads in Hong Kong is quite long lasting. Okay, so that is the background, okay, for why we use quite a bit of asphalt in Hong Kong. Okay, so let's go to what is called hot mix, okay, hot asphalt or warm asphalt or even cold asphalt, okay. So in the basically traditionally in Hong Kong, so we are still using what we call is the hot mix asphalt, okay. So if you sort of like just according to the modern definition of what is hot mix asphalt in UK or in US or whatever or whatever. Okay, so the definition of hot asphalt is from about 150 degrees Celsius to about 200 degrees Celsius. So in Hong Kong, okay, I would say about 80 to 90% of our asphalt production temperature is around 160 to 170 degrees Celsius. Okay, so if you have some special mix, it may actually go a little bit higher, maybe 180 or something, but most likely is about 160 to 170. Okay, and then a lot of asphalt plants people are actually getting complaints from people because if you can imagine that we are actually building a road is actually most likely is very near a residential area or pedestrian walkways or whatever. Okay, most likely is actually in a city somewhere. So even now in Hong Kong, if you are saying that you are in a new territories area, it's actually pretty developed. So you have actually a lot of residential areas nearby. Okay, so my pushing or encouragement to the government is that whether they can actually spend the next few years to actually change hot asphalt to warm asphalt. Okay, so I give a little bit of background about the world's development and then how, well, I've been in Hong Kong, we actually start from zero, or not zero, maybe we have 5, okay, out of 100, but we just pretty stick on the literature and then some desktop experience. Okay, we actually haven't touched upon about that, okay, in real works. Okay, so warm asphalt is actually anything between about 100 degrees to 150 degrees, okay, by adding some kind of additives or what we call is a kind of foaming technology to it to reduce the viscosity, okay, when it's mixing. Okay, so that is what we are targeting in the next few years. But usually the Hong Kong government is acting, I wouldn't say slow, but they are very conservative to take in ideas because they actually need some very good trials, okay, or they need to actually be confident about the material before they actually can decide to put on ground. Okay, so you can go further down to something called the half-warm asphalt and cold asphalt, but on paper it is actually looks pretty good, but technically speaking it can be you need to actually gain confidence of it. Okay, so I wouldn't push it very far. What we want to do is just maybe put just lower it to maybe 30 degrees lower to the current situation, okay, which is pretty good already. Okay, so sometimes technically speaking it actually may not work very well. I will explain a little bit later. Okay, so you have to strike a balance between and the environmental factors and the technical factors as well. So okay, so right, okay, so let's talk a little bit about the history of warm mix asphalt development. It's actually quite interesting. I think for a lot of engineering inventions, the old people actually know it already. They invented it already, probably in the Roman time as well, but for that I cannot actually trace back to the Roman time. So the technique of warm mix asphalt was actually invented in US by, according to a lot of literatures, it is from Iowa State University in 1956. Okay, so one of the technologies they use is called the foaming asphalt. It's produce a lot of water foam to actually add on it. Okay, so basically it's mixed with the asphalt. So it actually, the foaming actually temporarily, okay, expand the volume of it. Okay, so but after the asphalt is heat up, okay, so the water can actually evaporate and then just leave the asphalt alone. Okay, so that is what is they call is the foaming asphalt, and then you can see some more pictures later. Okay, and then in 1968, some people actually changed the system a little bit of adding cold water instead of steaming it. So by mobile oil, okay, Australia, okay, something like that. Okay, so in the 70s, that is a good breakthrough. Is some researchers actually investigate to add additives, chemical additives or other kind of additives to reduce the asphalt mixing temperature or even the compaction temperature, which is very important. Because if you can imagine a little bit, the operators, they compact it on ground, and then if it is in a hot day, it's already very hot. I'm sure in Singapore, in Malaysia, it's very hot. In Hong Kong, it's hotter than before. So when you are actually working in a temperature that you lay your asphalt on the ground, which is more than 100 degrees. In Hong Kong now is about 100 to about 120 degrees. So which is the environment is really hostile. It's not very friendly. Okay, so we want to reduce that as well. So the method was later termed as warm mix asphalt, okay, in all over the places. But interestingly, actually that idea actually was dropped for some time, not before 1990s, okay, the 90s. Okay, it was actually picked up again, okay, by Germany or some Scandinavian countries. So for example, in 1995, okay, the most proper warm mix asphalt pavement was constructed in Europe in Germany in 1995. Okay, so in the following years, some European countries actually work on that as well. So they built a highway by Shell Bitumen, okay, in 1996 in Norway as well. So and then interestingly, the US actually we investigated the warm mix methods in the 2000s, and then they learned the experience from Europe, okay, about how can they achieve it, and then how can they do it. But of course, they can learn very fast. They actually set up a working group to learn about it. They actually send engineers and researchers over to Europe, and then see what is the keys, okay, and what are the technologies they can actually work. They can actually develop their own warm mix asphalt, okay. So in just a little bit of statistics, well, I mean, to show is just in 2009, okay, and 2010, that is a big jump for the US to use to change from hot mix asphalt to warm mix asphalt. So these 2 years, actually, I think there's some kind of regulations they put in to actually change from hot mix asphalt to warm mix asphalt, okay. So that's a little bit of history of that. So just for a little bit of sharing on a Saturday morning, okay, don't want to put something too technical, okay. So that is for people who are not very familiar about the arrangement of asphalt plants. Basically, it's very simple. I mean, to me, it's simple because I've been working with asphalt plants for the last 10 years or so. Okay, so basically, the most important or critical thing about asphalt plants is the temperature. Okay, because you need to keep the asphalt materials in adequate temperature for it to be mixed and for it to be compacted. Okay, if you lose the temperature of that, okay, it means that the viscosity will be changed. Okay, and then the asphalt will not work very well. The interesting characteristic of what is the difference between concrete and asphalt is that asphalt is very sensitive to temperature and concrete is not. Okay, so if you have a concrete structure, okay, I just give one example. If you load it in 10 degrees, 0 degrees, or even 40 degrees, okay, so the behavior is pretty much the same. But asphalt is different. Asphalt actually changed from every single degree Celsius. So for our experimental works, we have to keep it within, usually it's about 0.5 degrees Celsius. So which needs to be quite accurate. Okay, so basically how it works is you have some coal aggregates to put in those this coal aggregate supply system. Okay, on my top right corner of it. okay? And then basically for all the asphalt plants, you're bound to have a drum dryer, okay? Or kind of drying system, okay? So the drum will rotate, okay? And then heat up the cold aggregates, okay? And then make sure the water moisture of the aggregate is can be fully evaporated, because there's some inherent water moisture inside the aggregates, depends on the weather of it, or actually you actually stockpile your materials in a piece of bare land. In Hong Kong usually is just outdoor area, so after some kind of rain, or it actually can stick up a lot of water. So the drum dryer is to basically push a lot of energy to heat up the aggregates to about 150 degrees Celsius, okay, or even higher. Some people will heat it up to 160 or 170, okay. So that actually requires a lot of energy, continuous energy, okay, so to heat it up, okay. So you have got a burner there, okay, to actually burn out something like that, okay. So before, basically the aggregate is okay, and then it can actually convey via a conveyor belt to the vibration screen at the top there. Okay, so the vibration screen is actually to screen the sizes, the adequate sizes for your mix. Okay, so that is all computer control now. Okay, so basically the customer can just place an order, and then their computer will know it. Okay, and then just screen off the adequate sizes to be mixed with the bitumen, the hot bitumen as well. Okay, just a bit of a side issue. Well, it's not really a side issue. It's actually quite important knowledge. Is that when we are talking about asphalt, 90% of the material is aggregates. Okay, only less than 10% is bitumen. Okay, so we have to make sure that the aggregates are pretty dry and pretty hot as well. Otherwise, even if you put good bitumen, or the temperature of the bitumen is pretty good as well to put on it, okay, if the aggregate is not hot enough, okay, it cannot actually produce good asphalt material. Okay, so basically the material will drop to the bottom, okay, and then if you can see that the left corner, right corner here, okay, this is the bitumen supply system. So basically you have got some bitumen tanks, okay. Usually in Hong Kong is a small place, so we don't really invite a lot of types of bitumen to be used, okay. In Hong Kong, we only have 2 types of bitumen types to be used. Okay, so basically the aggregates will fall into this mixing system here, okay, and then the bitumen will be sprayed on the top, okay, before it is can be transported to the customer, which is by this truck here, okay, going to the customer. Okay, so basically for the power generators of the fuel used, okay, for the asphalt plants, it actually because it is actually a high heat industry. So basically it will actually use a lot of energy, and then also it actually produces a lot of harmful emissions as well. Okay, a lot of asphalt plants, I think in Hong Kong, probably Singapore and Malaysia can share your experience as well. I'm really happy to apply it, okay, in asphalt plants. Okay, emission generation points are actually highlighted in this diagram here. Okay, all right. Okay, so the as a lot of people know, okay, so I'm not a chemist, I'm only a civil engineer, so I'm just would like to share some of my thoughts about how the environment can be improved by also improving our asphalt plants as well. Okay, so the major emissions is basically from the asphalt plants, from the combustion gases. We can see that is the SOx, NOx, okay, the nitrogen oxide, dioxide, sulfur oxide, dioxide, whatever, okay, or the carbon oxide, carbon dioxide, something like that, okay. Mainly is generated from the dryer, heater, and the generators, okay. So of course, it is a little bit of common sense or secondary school's chemistry or physics, okay? So it depends on what kind of fuel you use, okay? What is the production volumes, okay? And then also the efficiency of your dryer, okay? So for example, the less efficiency of your combustion system, okay, you may actually produce more carbon monoxide, okay, than other people else, okay. So basically that listed out here the important gases, okay, it can be generated, which will be harmful to the environment and which will be harmful to your health as well, okay. So which is nitrogen oxides, sulfur oxides, or dioxide, carbon monoxide, which is a little quite toxic, and then carbon dioxide as well. Okay, we want oxygen, human beings. We don't want a lot of carbon dioxide, of course. Okay. So from a lot of literatures, especially from, I think this diagram here, I just digest some of the data and then change it to a kind of diagrams to present it. Okay, so I think this is from the European Asphalt Association. Okay, so they work on it for the past decade and then produce some kind of reports for what kind of emission reduction if you use warm mix asphalt. Okay, so basically on the left hand side is the emissions from the plants. They were saying that if you can reduce your mixing temperature from about 20 degrees to 40 degrees Celsius, okay, you can actually reduce the emission of the plants to something like this, which is shown on the left-hand side. For example, you can actually reduce the sulfur dioxide from about 20% to 35%. Okay, it actually considerably reduced the nitrogen oxides to about 60 to 70%. Particulate matter, which is the fine particles, to 20 to 30, carbon dioxide up to about 40%, and then carbon monoxide, which is 10 to 30%. Okay, so I think everywhere now, especially in Europe and US or probably Australia, okay, or some Asian countries, they actually started to use warm mix asphalt. It's not due to the technical requirements. Definitely not due to the technical requirements. Okay, we are not saying that we use warm mix asphalt is because we can actually construct longer life pavements. No, because it's all due to the environmentally driven. Because we want to reduce the carbon footprints and the pollutions and etc. and etc. Okay, so but there's some challenge to it because once you actually make it to warm, which is out of the traditional, okay, so maybe there's something may happen to the technical side as well. Okay, and then we also can reduce the emission from the bitumen itself as well. So because when it is actually being produced, the bitumen will actually produce the VOC and then also the PAH, which is carcinogenic, probably carcinogenic to the human health as well. So basically you can actually reduce the VOC and then the PAH as well. So which is pretty good to the environment on one side and then to the health on the other side to the operators. Okay, so how am I doing with the time? Okay, so maybe I speed up a little bit. Okay, all right. Okay, so the most important thing is that actually in Hong Kong some time ago, under the Environmental Protection Department, okay, we have some kind of called the Air Quality Health Index, AcuiZen in Hong Kong. So we can actually see we can actually know our AcuiZen in Hong Kong every day from the Hong Kong Observatory. That is all the Environmental Protection Department. Okay, so we actually rank it from number 1 to number 10, which is at the bottom here. And then the interesting thing is our air quality health index is based on more or less based on these 4 gases, okay, or the contents, okay, ingredients in the air. Nitrogen dioxide, okay, sulfur dioxide, okay, the PM, okay, the particulate matters, okay, 2.5 and PM10, okay, and then ozone as well. So basically so that's why the Environmental Protection Department is actually really looking for anything, okay, or everything, okay, which is possible to produce those harmful emissions, which can, whether it is possible to cut down their level, okay, in the next few years or decades, okay. So one of the examples would be the asphalt plants, which actually they generate a lot of it. Okay, so just show you some plant emission examples. So this is done in Europe. Okay, so but it is a little bit outdated, but I think that is okay to show the concept of it. Okay, so in Norway, Italy, Netherlands, and France, okay, so actually they monitor the plant emission when they actually change from using hot asphalt to warm asphalt. Okay, so you can see that without saying the details, you can see that the percentage reduction is actually quite dramatic. Okay, from anything about 20% to about 60–70%, okay, for the harmful gases. All right, okay, so one of the another key issue I have briefly mentioned is about the emissions. Okay, so there's a global trend as well, because when we are talking about pollutions, well, or when we are talking about safety, we just don't talk about safety. We talk about health as well. So in Hong Kong, we are doing the same. We are at the beginning, we only probably talk about safety, but later on, we actually need to take care of the welfare of the operators or the workers. Okay. So basically, we have to enhance the operational health of people. But I will say that in Hong Kong, we are actually quite mature in some aspects, but we are still developing that in other industrial areas. Okay, so basically, I think this is from the WHO. They are saying that they emphasize that the current trend in reducing inhalation and the thermal exposure to bitumen in the workplace is pretty important. So they actually put in a drive to other places which they actually needs to adopt warm mixes. Okay. So also from the European Asphalt Pavement Association as well. So basically, if they actually have written a guideline saying that if you can reduce the production temperature for about 12 degrees or something, that will reduce the release of the film produced from the asphalt materials. Okay, so you can do that, right? Okay, and then you can actually reduce the smell as well. Okay, so a lot of residents, you know, from the residential areas in Hong Kong, they complain about the smell. Whenever they can smell something quite bad, they think that is harmful to their health. Okay, so as far as I know, there's some basic knowledge is that something smell bad may not be bad to your health, but definitely that will irritate you. Okay, and then make you have a headache, fatigue, or whatever. Okay, so we also want to cut this down. Okay, to make sure that everybody is working in a rather friendly environment. Okay. So basically, that actually shows a report from the health effects of from the hazard review, health effects of occupational exposure to asphalt, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Okay, so they actually do some laboratory works. They have done some laboratory works on that to compare if the asphalt or bitumen materials is heated up in different temperature, what is the effect? Okay, so basically they cannot do a very sizable research on that. They only compares that when the bitumen is heated up to about 150 degrees to 300 degrees. Okay, so one thing I want to point it out is that if you heat up to a quite high temperature for the bitumen, okay, it can actually produce a lot of PAH. Okay, which PAH can cause cancer. Which is carcinogenic to people. Okay, you can see that I actually put that into a box there. I will tell you something about that. Okay, so what is PAH is actually some compounds which contains a lot of benzene rings. Okay, So expert was saying that if the compounds actually contains 2 or 3 benzene rings, it may not be very carcinogenic. Okay, but if it actually contains up to about 4 to 5 benzene rings, okay, it becomes quite carcinogenic. Okay, so in other words, is that if you actually make it higher, the temperature higher, so that will actually cause a higher risk of that materials will become carcinogenic. Okay, so a little bit of just highlights from the report there. Okay, so of course, okay, PAH is one which is very detrimental to the health. Okay, under a prolonged high level of exposure. Okay, so it actually contains carbon and hydrogen. Okay, which is consists 2 or more benzene rings. Okay, which is called PAH. Okay, so investigations indicate that hazardous PAH occur in compound with 4 or more benzene rings. Okay, so actually that will be quite subject to the temperature. Okay, and then one investigation they have done is how much it is stirred, okay, or mixed. Okay, so if it is your mixing operation is actually not favorable to the material, so the benzene rings will actually can expose, okay, or actually appears to the surface, to float to the surface, and then the operator can actually inhale in their lungs, okay, which is quite detrimental. Okay, so that is a kind of relationship between the temperature and then the reduction film exposure, which is also mentioned in their reports as well. Okay, so you can see that, well, you can say because some people will, government people, because some government people may not be engineers, so we need some data to convince them. So the best is actually show them some well-recognized data. So you can see that for every 12 degrees or 10 degrees of reduction in asphalt temperature, it actually cut down a lot of film exposure to the people, okay, which is very good to the health of people. Okay, so 10 degrees doesn't feel a lot, okay, but it actually is quite good. All right. Okay, so I speed up a little bit. Okay, so other important benefits of warm mixed asphalt is that it's actually can reduce the aging of asphalts, because the asphalt can age, okay, within high temperature. It also can save up a lot of energy, okay, because the asphalt plant will be very happy because they use less fuel. Okay, the site can be opened earlier because the temperature of the material is lower. So for it to be further lower to the room temperature, okay, so that actually takes lesser time as well. So, and then also the lower temperature, it will cause less tear and wear of the plant and machineries. Okay, so basically it actually produces a lot of benefits. All right, okay, so I wouldn't go into details, but just want to list out a few of the warm mix techniques you can use. You can use chemical additives, okay? You can use organic additives. You can use the foaming techniques, okay, which is I mentioned earlier. You put some foam in there, okay, and then make the volume of it temporarily expand, okay, and then that will reduce the viscosity and make it like a lubricant, okay, and then so that's why you can mix it in lower temperature, okay? So, but something you have to pay attention is that some additives can actually reduce the durability of the material, because I'm also a highway material researcher, okay? So you really have to strike a balance between what kind of additives or techniques you can use. Otherwise, on one hand, you will actually do something good to the environment, and on the other hand, you are actually reducing your functional life of your structure, which is not good, which is not what we want. Okay, so just a little bit of picture on the foaming techniques. Okay, so basically 2 or 3% of bitumen water in 180 degrees of hot bitumen, that can actually expand to about many times, okay, of the original volume. Okay, so I may not go into detail of that because of time. Okay, so this just shows you that in the last decade or so, a lot of places actually have developed their own additives or techniques for making their warm mix asphalts. Okay, US, South Africa, Korea, so on and so forth, Germany, Norway, and then another one from the US, that is the foaming techniques. Okay, all right, okay, so last slide. Okay, I would like to just share that is for those techniques. Okay, so but of course, which is good. Okay, which is you are doing something very good to the environment. Okay, because you are actually saving up a lot of energy and then producing less emission. Okay, but my comment is that you some additives can be very high cost. Of what, for example, some countries are selling their chemical additives, which is in a rather high cost. So when you are actually choosing that, you have to be pretty careful about that. Okay, so and also some additives can permanently weaken the properties of the bitumen, so which is needs to be very careful as well. Okay, and then I'm not doing a promotion here, but I actually work under an organization called NAMI, which is a research institute of Nano and Advanced Material Institute, which is under the government. Okay, and that organization is actually to set up in Hong Kong locally. Okay, to develop their own materials for Hong Kong. Okay, so if the people are thinking that right, okay, there's no suitable material which can be sourced from somewhere, okay, and then our organization is pretty happy to actually develop new materials or new additives for the industry to be used as well. Okay, so which is in a rather lower cost. Okay? So thank you very much for listening. Okay, this is my little sharing on a Saturday morning. I'm very happy to share my experience today. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Engineer Dr. Yep. Yeah, anyone?
Hello,
Yep.
hello, sir.
Yes.
This is Dr. LP Singh from NIT Jalandhar, India.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Yeah.
Probably I joined this presentation late, but I have one question. If with due permission of the organizer, can I ask one question, sir?
Sure.
Hello.
Yes, sure.
Sir, okay, sir. My question is that regarding this technology, sir, you have explained everything very nicely, and probably this is going to be another era of a new in future. But my concern is about health hazardous effects during the processing of materials, or maybe whatever the composites or whatever the process is, or the outcome of this process, the product or material which we are going to produce, what would be the health hazardous effects, and if it is there, then how we can tackle that? What about the toxic emissions, toxicants from the materials like this?
You mean hi, right, okay, thank you for the question. You mean that the toxic substance come from the additives itself?
Yeah. Yes,
well,
sir. Yes.
Well, as far as I know, I'm not a chemist, sorry, but as far as I know, some of the additives is not very, it actually wouldn't produce a lot of toxic substances. For example, I can actually go back. Am I still sharing my slide? Yeah. For example, a lot of countries nowadays, they actually produce some kind of foaming techniques. But they know that in order to install the entire foaming facility in their plants is rather difficult and rather costly. So actually they produce some kind of additives, tablets, tablets. Okay, so basically that is a capsule. Inside that is what we call is chemically bonded water. It's just some water. Okay, so when you can actually put it into your asphalt material, your bitumen. So when it is melts, when the temperature gets up to a certain temperature, like, I don't know, like 100 degrees or something. So the capsule will slowly melt, and then the water, a little bit of water will disperse. Of course, they actually will put some, maybe some nanoparticles to actually make it more can be easily distributed into the whole material matrix as well. Okay, but the inside the materials itself, okay, is not very harmful as far as I know. As far as I know, there's another. But I probably there's no time. But there's another kind of additives or chemical which is quite harmful, which I actually personally want to work on that as well for the next few years. Is we do a lot of reclaimed asphalt pavements. Is when every day you actually remove your old asphalt pavements. So instead of dumping that into the landfill, a lot of places want to reuse it. So in order to reduce a large amount of those materials, you need to put in something called the rejuvenator. The rejuvenator is actually to refresh the material and make the elasticity of it recover the elasticity of the material. Okay, so that additives can be actually quite harmful to health, as far as I know. But for the warm mix additives, I don't think it is very very harmful, to my understanding.
Sir, is there any specific toxicant that you can mention over here that this kind of toxicant will be emitted, and one should be very cautious about that, or we can wear some protective equipment while processing of materials, or while manufacturing of that kind of materials? If we can give some instructions, some instructions, safety instructions, that this kind of hazardous emissions or toxicants are there, and one should wear such kind of mask, or maybe some protection. If we can recommend some protection, I think that would be, from my side, it is my observation. I don't know whether it is okay or not. So if there is any specific toxicant, you can mention that this kind of toxicant is there, and maybe there could be a scope of further research on that thing also.
Right. Okay. So maybe I'm because in Hong Kong we are just starting on that. So maybe we are still. Yeah. So if you can allow me, if you can ask if you can leave your email address. Oh.
Yeah, sir. On chat box. On chat box.
Yeah. Or you can actually give it to. Give it to the organizer. Okay.
I'm giving on chat box, sir. I'm writing on
chat
the
box.
Chat box.
Okay. Okay. So we can do some.
I have written on chat box.
Okay, and then we can do some knowledge exchange later.
Yeah, sir. Yeah, it will be privilege for me to work with the eminent personalities like you. And sir, I'm working on occupational health and safety and ergonomics. So my concern is always about health hazardous effects, because in India, especially where I am residing, this northern state Punjab, we have experienced up to 46, 47 degrees Celsius temperature maximum.
Oh.
In summer season, yeah.
Oh, season. That is hot.
And moreover, when let us suppose we are using such materials in cars, interior of car maybe, okay, so that you can understand that due to greenhouse effect, a lot of temperature is there inside the car cabin, and we need to open the windows for, you can say, 2-3 minutes, and then switch on the car and AC, and then we could sit over there. We cannot start immediate our journey. So this is just one example. There are so many other applications of such materials. Rather, one of my student is also working on this composite. We have developed one composite using that is biodegradable composite, and that too have application in automobiles and some other construction materials. So we have tried to develop that material without using any synthetic base binder. That is on natural based binder.
Okay.
So my concern is always to stop the health hazardous effects, toxicants. So that is from my side, and I would love to collaborate with any of the participants or speakers. It will be my privilege, sir. So otherwise, you have delivered very nicely, and I appreciate your efforts. You have done wonderful work, sir, and I'm grateful to listen to you. Thank you very much,
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay, we can do some.
Thank you very much, Dr. L.P. Singh, for your questions posting to our speakers. So I think we have run short of time, so we have to move on to the next speaker. So thank you very much for Dr. Gordon Leung for taking your time to speak with us. So maybe Dr. L.P. Singh, we will speak on other time. So to invite you for the next session.
Thank you.
Speak on one
Thank you so much.
So it is
Thank you very much.
to invite you. So next, it is our greatest pleasure for me to welcome and also introduce our third speaker of the day, Mr. JC Sekar from Singapore. He's an executive committee member of IOSH Singapore branch and also the CEO for AcuiZen Technologies Singapore. So he's going to present on the redefining workplace safety for his Highlands operations. So sorry for keeping you waiting for a little bit long. So I pass over the mic to Mr. JC Sekar. So.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thanks for having me here. I just want to make sure you can see my slide and you can hear me okay?
Yeah, very clearly.
Okay, great. So yes, so this is the topic, so I don't want to go over it, but I want to start with a disclaimer. While I am an executive member of IOSH Singapore, I want to make sure that whatever I'm stating here, because some of what I'm going to be stating are really, thoughts and, a little bit of, thinking forward. So it doesn't necessarily represent the views of the associations that I'm a member with. So please take that disclaimer into account when I'm sharing this session. So let me start off, because the whole topic was about resilience and safety. So I want to start off by really putting those terms into context. So, and feel free again, I know this is a Saturday morning and some of you may kind of be drowsing off, but let's start off by asking, what exactly do we mean by the word resilient? I know we all experience these storms, but feel free to unmute and maybe just throw in a few words if you want to. What do we mean by resilience? The reason I have the picture there is because resilient is because we are all facing storms, we are all facing challenges, we are all facing different situations, but it's really about our ability to bounce back. It's our ability to bounce back, to recover from the effects of a shock or some kind of a situation in a timely and efficient manner. So you've got to get to the state of calmness, and your ability to get to do that, to recover from that shock and to get back to all that stuff is really what resilience is all about. So it's a very relevant topic under the current circumstances, because we, as you all know, are experiencing a great shock and stress at this point of time. So let me move on to the next point, which is about, we're talking about resilience, but what do we mean by safety, or in the broader sense, health and safety? Again, feel free to unmute and possibly provide your views. What do we exactly mean when we say safety? I know this is we have about 70 odd professionals who have been in the industry for long, but I just want to kind of get a sense of, when we say safety, actually what are we talking about? Let me get at least one voice.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
This is Dr. L.P. Singh from NIT Jalandhar, India.
Yes, Dr. Singh.
Sir, are you asking this in context of general health and safety, or in context of industrial health and safety?
Let's talk about industrial for now, or you can put it general also, it doesn't matter. But when you refer to safety, what do we usually refer to?
So,
and let's keep it brief so that we just kind of
this is if we are concerned about occupational health, so that is regarding the social, mental, physical and spiritual well-being of a person, and the safety is concerned about that, how we can assure all these things. It is not like that due to process the injury could be there, maybe due to some mental trauma, or you can say some stress, the physical deterioration could be there. So all kind of safety is there. So whether it is peer pressure or, you know, the targets, production targets and all that. So mainly if you talk about the physical, that is regarding due to process, if there is any risk of health hazards or injury, so how we can stop that, how we can prevent that?
Agreed. So usually, and that's why, you know, everybody, when you talk about safety or you talk about even health for that matter, I think the usual dialogue is around the presence, or rather the absence of an industry, of an incident or an injury or an illness or an occupational hazard. So that's the traditional definition. So you always say that, you know, when you look at the metrics, it's all about, you know, how much time did we lose? How many fatalities did we have? How many accidents? How many hours did we lose due to, you know, due to injury? You know, so these are all the traditional definitions of safety. And I'm going to challenge that definition today. And I'm going to say that we probably need to start relooking at this whole definition, which is why I started off by saying, can we look at safety?
That's great, sir. That's great, sir.
Okay, so let me continue with that. So I'm going to propose that, you know, we need to start looking, when we start looking at safety and health, we need to look at what I call as the 3 C's. And I'm going to talk about each of these in some more detail. The first one being capacity, the second being controls, and the third being competency. And let me dwell deeper into all of these 3 things and why they matter today. So exactly what do we mean by capacity? So when we talk about capacity, we are really talking about the capacity to operate safely. And again, when I use the word safety, I'm also referring to environment. I'm also referring to occupational health and hygiene. So you need the capacity to operate safely, because if you don't have the capacity, which is probably a combination of money, manpower, material, machines, and methods, you probably cannot operate safely. So you need capacity in the system to really absorb any of those shocks or any of those stressors that come into the system. And that capacity also involves, let's say, the physical capacity or the location where you are, because you are probably going to be delivering this from multiple locations. So let's keep this for a moment, and I'll come back to capacity in a bit to say, why is capacity stressed? Okay, so let's get to that in just a moment. The second thing which we need to talk about is and we're talking about, and going back to the previous slide, I'm talking about the presence of capacity. And likewise, I also think we need to look at not the absence, but the presence of controls. And what do we really mean by controls? Again, I know you're all safety professionals here, and I know you're all experts in what you do, but I just want to very quickly do a risk management 101 kind of session here. We all know that there are hundreds of hazards around her. Now, some of them could be psychosocial, it could be physical, it could be chemical, biological, whatever we talked about, all of those hazards that are all around us. It's the existence of the hazards which really results in a situation where you could have an incident. Okay. Now, that incident could in turn result in some consequence, which again could be a simple consequence of maybe a minor injury or maybe as bad as a fatality. Now, it doesn't mean that every hazard is going to translate into a risk event. There's a probability behind it. And it doesn't mean that every injury is going to result in a fatality, because there is a severity associated with all of these things. And as you all know, it's the combination of this probability and severity that we typically call as risk. So risk is always there, right? Because the hazards are always there. And ideally, of course, if you want to mitigate those risks, you need to put in place controls. And what do we really mean by controls? It really means, can I put in place a control in such a way that I'm eliminating that hazard entirely? Or if that's not possible, can I at least ensure that the hazard is not translating into a risk event? And lastly, if even that is not possible, can I at least mitigate the consequence and make sure that, mitigate the impact of that hazard and make sure that the consequence is not bad? I mean, this is what we talk about I'm representing the hierarchy of controls in a slightly different manner, but this is exactly what we mean by saying, do we have the controls in place to ensure that we are actually mitigating those risks that we are possibly exposed to? So the presence of something I'm talking about. And this you got to see in the context of where we are in today's world, because in many parts of the world at least, we are moving towards what we call as this Industry 4.0, which is really about cyber physical systems where things are connected to each other. And what that means is that you are now in a better position to really see whether those controls are actually in place or not. in the absence of time, I'm going to skip this video that I wanted to show, but it's actually
as
Microsoft
our world
video.
becomes increased
But I'll
multiple
just kind of
floors.
talk about some of the basic things. What it says basically is, and I'm going to skim through it very quickly, is that you can now use controls to identify, for example, cameras to identify whether something is in compliance or otherwise. You can identify, let's say, what's the hazardous situation. In other words, artificial intelligence and all that has moved to an extent where you can interconnect multiple devices and proactively identify controls. So for example, you know what's hazardous, you know whether this person is competent or incompetent, whether he's authorized to use a specific piece of equipment. So you can get all the data now through the existence of controls. So the presence of controls is something that we need to be aware of, and that's possible. And now you can do that better because of Industry 4.0. The third thing, and this is something that I'm very, very passionate about, is about the ability of the individuals, the frontline workers, to really deal with the situation. Competency, because that's the third C that I really like to focus on, which is really about, so what if you have capacity? So what if you have the controls? Do you really have the human being who knows how to deal with situations? And that's something which I think is the third C that we need to focus on. And I'll talk about why these are important and what needs to change and what is probably happening in each of these three C's going forward. So in other words, my redefinition of safety is about, we need to start moving away from looking at the absence of an accident or an incident to the presence of capacity, the presence of controls, and the presence of competent people who essentially can handle and manage situations as they happen. But having said all that, I think we are now living in a situation where there is a lot of relevance to this topic of resilience and safety today. And why is that? I think because we've all experienced that one big shock, that one big shock that has come in our way, which has kind of distorted a lot of life around us. So where does this come in? What is the stress? And we spoke about why resilience is really the ability to recover from the stress. And I think this current situation has really given us this opportunity to really stress test ourselves. So what is the stress and capacity, controls and competency? Maybe let's take COVID-19 as an example, and not necessarily, this is not the only shock we're going to face. There are going to be multiple shocks, but let's look at what has COVID-19 done to capacity, controls and competency, and how do we need to take care of it. The stress and capacity, I'm going to go a bit fast because I think I'm out of time, but the stress and capacity really is that today you see that investments are drying up, so when investments are drying up, yes, maybe there's going to be less of global warming and all that stuff, but that's going to really impact the ability of people to kind of deliver and the ability of the economy to survive. So let me keep that aside. Manpower. I think manpower is a big issue because what this shock is doing to us is also, putting a lot of people and putting a lot of livelihoods at risk. And that's a big, big challenge that we're going to face, because that challenge is going to result in turn into people who are really in the front end of the labor force, who are kind of doing the work, which is, I call them 3D jobs, if you probably know what it means. It is dirty, dangerous, and demeaning jobs. Many of them are remote workers. And as you know, the remote workers, people who are being the migrant workers, are all people who have been hurt a lot because of this. They need to keep reskilling themselves because things are changing. But at the same time, they're going through a lot of psychosocial pressures because they don't even know whether they're going to have a job tomorrow when they go back. And even in advanced countries, even in developing world, I was listening to a podcast today about how suicides are on the rise in the UK because of people losing jobs. So this is, the human being is also going under tremendous amount of stress, and that's going to result in stresses on capacity. Let me talk about one stress. I don't know if any of you can know what this picture is all about, but this is really about the Germanwings crash, which happened some years ago, where it talked about how a pilot who was kind of going through psychosocial stress really resulted in crashing that thing. And I spoke about this in a blog some time back, where I spoke about why this was not really an accident, but it was really a industrial safety incident because of psychosocial pressures. So in other words, humans are a big piece of this whole thing, and we need to worry about the stress that they cause. Let's talk about capacity, and let's talk about materials. We've spoke very briefly, I think Engineer Gordon also spoke about nanomaterials. It's great. I think there's new materials that is coming, but what are some of the stresses that these new materials could introduce? Are there likely to be any health hazards which we are unaware of at this point of time? So we need to be aware of that and be conscious of that and look at how do we manage that. Another example with machines. Again, automation is great. I think automation leads to controls, but what is that going to do to other things in terms of the workers, their ability to manage in the area of the new technology? So there is going to be stress from a machine perspective as well. And lastly, methods. We talk about new methods of working. I mean, this is 3D printing, but then are we fully aware of all of the occupational hazards that may come due to 3D printing? For example, there are studies which talk about the particles that come, the airborne particles which come, which could be a major health hazard, and we don't know what they are as yet. So bottom line, there is going to be stress in capacity, and as COVID has shown us, these stresses keep getting more and more. And lastly, like I said, we also need to look at the deglobalization of the supply chain, because the capacity is also shifting, because we today are working here, but then because of deglobalization, the realignment of facilities may happen, and we may say that, we now want to start putting our supply chains here, which means you're going to be having new people, probably young workers, now being exposed to new risks, and we don't know what they are. So the point I want to make here is that the stressors in the capacity could be impacting the ability of the system to deliver the necessary safety performance. So that's something which is, we got to keep this in the back of our mind. Okay. Let's talk briefly about controls. I know that some of you on the call. So sometime back, there was a restart that happened, and there was a chemical plant which didn't follow the protocols as a result of the restart, and that resulted in fatalities at work. And again, we spoke about the impact on human beings, and we spoke about how the psychosocial pressures are building up because people are being laid off and furloughed, and people losing jobs, which again leads to an increase into presenteeism. Presenteeism is not the absence of, I mean, the word presenteeism is a very misunderstood word, but basically presenteeism is about people who should not be at work actually coming to work. And that's not a good thing, because if I'm a carrier of a disease, or if I'm not in the right frame of mind, or if I'm not physically okay, my presence at work could possibly be leading to more harm and impact on the workers. I could be not performing to the best of my abilities. And this is a problem which is much, much, much larger than absenteeism. And I think presenteeism could go up because people don't want to lose jobs. They want to make sure they show up at work even when they shouldn't be at work. And that's going to possibly result in the stress on controls. So my point there really is that there are new and unknown hazards that could be coming up, which we are not aware of at this point of time. And that could be putting stress on the controls. So you may be realigning supply chains, you may be spreading the risks, but in that process, we may be introducing unforeseen hazards, and we may not be able to spread the controls and put in place the right controls as a result of the new hazards that are coming in place. So that's the second C I talked about. And like I said, I always like to talk about, end of the day, people can talk about behavioral based safety and all that stuff, but I think it boils down really to our ability to put people who are competent and to people who can operate under a dynamic and ever-changing environment. And when it comes to the stress and competency, I think we need to realize that just a mere fact of qualifying somebody and saying that you're qualified to do this job doesn't mean that they are competent, because we are blindsided when it comes to competency. I like to show a little picture here which talks about what do we mean by saying blindsided, because you could be consciously aware. I could be talking to you, but you could be consciously aware of something and performing a task well, and that's great. You're in the green zone. But then you could be unconsciously ignorant about a particular topic. Okay. And that's something where you could actually be introducing hazards into the workplace, which are probably dangerous. I think it's best that I explain this through a little bit of an example, because this is an area that we work on. So I'm going to just for a moment identify and uncover, exactly where is this individual? Is this individual somebody who thinks he knows something, and is he kind of unconsciously ignorant? The whole idea being, we can figure out, is this person going to pose a risk to operations? Because a guy who thinks he knows something and he actually doesn't know is a far greater risk to work than somebody who knows he doesn't know, or somebody who knows that and he knows it correctly. So these are some challenges. I would have loved to show this in the form of a little algorithm that we have and how it actually works. But bear in mind that we need to move away from looking at it purely as competency, but you need to also discover what's the level of competency and how is the individual likely to pose a risk to operations. So that's something which we do. So if I were to kind of put this all together, I would say that a resilient operation is not by accident. It is really by combining and making sure that we have the capacity, the controls, and the competency in place to ensure that, you know, we are having the controls in place, and that's when we are having safety. So safety is not the absence of incidents or accidents, it's the presence of the 3 C's. And that's something we need to start striving towards. So we need to start re-looking at how can we redefine safety and how can we look at safety differently, so to say. So in other words, under the new normal, it's really about, we can probably be more safe if we better understand and better manage the 3 C's of capacity, controls, and competency. So that's my submission. I would have loved to show you a little examples, but happy to kind of talk through it and maybe discuss more with people. And I hope I made up for the time lost. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, sir. Really wonderful deliberation from your side. Sir, can I ask one question?
You're more welcome, more than welcome.
Yeah. Sir, my question is regarding what about human factors considerations in safety aspects? Like, suppose we have everything, you know, IoT based install and all things. But despite that, if the attitude of the individual human being is not as per the, you know, guidelines, or maybe he's not serious about that, then I think it would be difficult to assure the safety.
Okay.
So how we can
let me pose the question back to you. Why is an individual not, you know, caring for what he's supposed to be doing? Is there any individual who comes to work with an intention to say that I want to die today, I want to go and cause harm, I want to...
No, sir. Regarding maybe the country which you are probably like Singapore or some other, there may be easily that there may be possible to easily manage the things, but in underdeveloped countries or maybe developing countries like India, especially the small scale units, I'm talking about the practical aspects, sir. Practical aspects. While my PhD work, I have observed so many workers in number of industries. Either they were not following due to their negligence, or they are not enforced by the company itself or the manager. So the safety norms, to adopt the safety norms, you know, rather in Indian culture, it is difficult to, you know, follow the instructions at home as well.
Let me pause.
You're made.
In the interest of time, I think I get your question, and I fully agree with your point that the situation is different in places. My submission here is as follows. I have done. I'm not a doctor, but I've researched on the subject quite a bit, and I think the fundamental problem that we need to deal with is that we have to move away from this mentality that we have to enforce compliance by telling people what they need to do. We have to move away from this mentality of what, and this is where the core competency of education comes in place, to the why behind it. If you tell me why I should be doing something, and if you can reinforce the why again and again and again, you need to be doing the less of enforcement, because you need to internalize that in me. You need to internalize me to say that the reason I'm asking you to wear a mask is because of so-and-so. The reason I'm asking you to do this is so-and-so. Not taking a policing attitude to say that, look, if you don't wear a harness, I'm going to be fining you X number of things. So you have to get that intrinsic motivation. And this is where it comes back to saying, to what extent are you training the people? Are you training the people on compliance, or are you training the people on the why behind something so that they are more conscious of it and they follow it without enforcement or without somebody looking? So because it's all about following the rules when somebody is not there.
Yes, definitely. And sir, one thing more, as you mentioned, 5 points, 5 factors, money.
Yeah,
I think it is one of the biggest, you know, one of the most significant factor, because some of the tiny or small scale units, they don't bother about investing. They don't care about investing any penny on, you can say, safety aspects. They are just concerned about fetching the orders from the customers if they are exporters, like, or just they are trying to fulfill the order, dispatching the orders. They don't want to disturb, they don't want to stop their factory for a single day, or you can say for a couple of hours, so that the safety parameters can be assured, or they can be no mock drills at all. A lot many problems are there, and the people from Indian factory, or Indian Factory Act, or maybe like some pollution control board, they used to come, and some malpractices are there.
Mhm.
So I'm sharing these aspects openly, because this is very critical problem in India. It is very difficult for a person who is pursuing PhD or maybe research work, some project work in industrial safety or occupational health and safety, because everything depends upon their cooperation and attitude. They should like, I try to during my PhD, I try to make the people aware, counsel them, and tell them that this will be your loss if you are not wearing the mask, or maybe goggles, or not following the instructions. You may get major injury, or you may die because of accident. Despite that, the people who are managing the things, managers, or the owners of the company, or they don't want to spend money. This is the reality, hardcore reality, sir.
So this is where I come back to the, I mean, to
And
your,
I think if WHO or maybe ILO, if they can intervene, and they can, do something for such countries or such industries, or people like me, or some other people who are working in this area very seriously, there should be some help, or some, some intervention from
I mean,
international
I agree with all the points you make. Again, in the interest of time, I just want to kind of summarize this whole thing by saying that, we started off, at least the point you made was about workers not following, and then you came back to the point about how the owners or the leaders or whatever try to kind of push things. And that's my fundamental point, is that for far too long, we have always looked at the worker as the problem. And I think saying and blaming the worker has always been a very easy thing to do. But I think we need to recognize that it is not the worker that is the cause of the problem. The worker, no worker, I can't think of any worker who comes with unless he has a suicidal tendency. I can't think of anybody who comes with an intention to say
yes,
that.
definitely. They want that they tell that, sir, if nobody provides us, if they go to the supervisor or the manager, they said, no, we have already given you last week or last month, I have given you one mask. Where is that? They don't know that this is disposable, or that is going to damage, that will be blocked due to reparable dust.
So again, the point being that, I think we'll have to start looking at safety as a leadership issue, not necessarily
Yes.
worker. And that's my fundamental point. As far as the worker is concerned, we need to educate them on the why behind what they need to be doing, what they're doing.
Yes.
And if they are conscious of the why, at least from the worker's side, the competency will not come in the way of issues. Of course, capacity is a big issue, and that capacity also includes the ability of a promoter or a SME owner or somebody to invest and build the thing. So I think this is not a conclusive subject, and I don't think anybody here can solve the problem overnight. It's not going to happen.
Yes, definitely.
But as long as organizations and the larger organizations who are procuring from smaller organizations are conscious of the fact that this is something which, if I'm evaluating a supplier, I should not look at a supplier's records and say, show me your track record of your accidents and injuries and all that, because that can always be doctored. But I must be looking specifically, tell me what controls have you put in place? What capacity do you have to ensure that you can deliver safely? That should be my question as a larger, supply chain provider, as a larger, let's say.
Yeah. And sir, one thing more that
I think Mr. JC.
This is last, sir. Just concluding. I'm grateful to the speaker, sir. There is a huge gap between that, because MNC and large scale industry, they are following that IoT base and all, but the small scale and tiny unit, there is a huge gap, and we should try at international level, the community, research community, we should do something to bridge that gap. Otherwise, we won't be able to assure that, because it will be like the two parallel lines. They never meet each other.
I wholeheartately agree with you.
Yes,
Right.
yes, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, and
Thank you so much.
I apologize for consuming much time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, let's give a big round of applause to Mr. JC Sekar by clicking the claps at the bottom of reactions. So giving a big applause or appreciating him speaking on the topic to us. So without further ado, let's welcome the next speaker, the fourth speaker of the day. It is our greatest pleasure to invite Dr. Sangeeta Kaur, the founder of Imaging Journey Asia, to speak with us on the positive mental health well-being for more safer workplace. Welcome, Dr. Sangeeta.
Hello. Hi,
Hello.
everyone.
You may share your slide.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, forgot that.
Yeah, Mr. Lim.
Yep.
If you don't mind, you advise the audience if they have any question on their speaker paper, please write at the chat box.
Yep.
And then the moderator, we're going to choose from the question, and then we will request the mic on.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
And give another chance for the audience.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we hand over to
Okay.
Sangeeta. You may start.
Hi, good morning, or now I would say good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for being here today, and thanks to the organizer to look into mental well-being as part of your OSH, because all this while we've been hearing about OSH, but it's not a lot about, health, especially mental health, okay? So before I start, I would like all of you to just relax your shoulder, all right? Because most of the time, without us knowing, unconsciously, our shoulder will be on defense mode and we will be tense. So while it's tense, we tend to send a signal to our brain for us to be defensive, for us to have a lot of barrier in front of us, which enable us to look or listen in a deeper level, right? So just relax your shoulder. It's not to hunch, but just to relax, yeah? Okay, so again, if you have any question, please feel free to key in the chat box. I will go through, and if there's anything, I will address the questions. So I would appreciate if you have questions, because more questions, you will have a lot of understanding, but we keep within the time limit, yeah? So positive mental well-being promotes safety workplace. So this is something that I hold dearly, and I feel that everyone, it doesn't matter where you are, from which age group, or which part of the world, you need to look at mental well-being. When we talk about mental well-being, it's more about understanding yourself first before you look at others. So I like what Mr. JC was presenting earlier. It's about your internal motivation. You need to know the why I'm doing this, rather than just look into policy where it create fear. But when you touch into an individual more holistically, they will understand and they will approach, yeah? All right. So when we talk about positive well-being, it's like, okay, it's about you recognizing your ability, okay, and you are able to cope through normal stresses of life, all right? So we need to understand that all of us will go through some sort of mental challenges. When I say mental challenges, meaning, people can go through burnout, people can go through, mild depression or stress, okay, financial issues. So these are, they need to understand some sort of mental challenges, but then they are able to cope, meaning they are able to function. They can wake up, they can eat, they can communicate, they can do their tasks. All right, so when you understand this, then your work-life balance will be more productive, it will be more fruitful. And the most importantly, you'll be able to contribute to the community. All right, so one of the good ways, or the best way, I feel, is gratitude, which is lacking with our people. All right, we expect people to do for us, we expect things to be given to us. All right. And as human, we like to compare ourselves with others. And when we compare, we always compare ourselves with someone who is much more higher. If it's a positive, then it's good. But if it's a negative type of comparison, then you'll be going through a lot of unnecessary negative mental well-being. All right. So when it's negative well-being, mental well-being, then it will affect your productivity at work. It will affect how you communicate with others. And most importantly, it will affect how do you listen, because remember, unconsciously, your shoulder will be in the upper mode where you'll be on defense. So when you are communicating, just relax your shoulder because you will understand more, yeah? All right. Why is positive well-being is important? There's so many different reasons. It can be something that is you are born with, your values, all right? It can be coming from your culture. It can be something that is being passed down, right? But why is it important? One, if we talk about workplace, it can be to increase employee productivity, because an employee who is positive, they radiate that energy of positivity and they create that harmony. Secondly, they feel happy. Yeah. Another one is, to have a better behavior at work. And when they have a better behavior at work, they are able to manage stress efficiently. Okay. Most of the time, we feel that, oh, I'm so stressful because they are unable to look into their behaviors. They take a lot of things personally, and therefore, they feel that, I am unable to cope. So it's good that by understanding this, you will know more about yourself. And I want to touch about stress because most of the time people say that stress is bad. But do you know that there's two types of stress? One is a good stress and one is a bad stress. Okay. Stress is for motivating us to do things. Stress is to encourage us to push ourselves to make it better. Okay. So that is why good stress is short term. Okay. And when the good stress develop into something that is you're unable to cope, that's where it becomes bad stress. So being conscious of your mind, being conscious of what you're doing, your behavior, it would help a lot in terms of applying positive well-being at workplace, and also at home and to everyone else that is near you. Okay. All right. So another thing, by having positive well-being, you will improve your staff retention. Okay. Most of the time, organizations lose a lot of money in terms of staff, because in order for you to hire, you need to go through a whole process. All right. And then there's a lot of time, a lot of resources will be wasted if you get a wrong employee, or you get a negative environment, working culture that will affect your employee well-being. Okay. Which can include toxic leaders. It can include with conflict at work. It can increase, for example, not safe in terms of physical and also emotional. So there's a lot of way that you look at it. So by having or implementing positive well-being, it will help you in your staff, the engagement will be better. And the most important thing, I think, is reduce conflict and drama. This is in every organization. When you talk about conflict and drama, not only at work, it can be conflict and drama at home. It can be conflict and drama with your friends. It can be conflict and drama with your relative, right? Because you need to understand, you as individual, you need to understand that we are a whole. Holistic meaning, what you think or what you experience at home, you will bring to your workplace. And what you experience at workplace, you will bring it back home. So you cannot shut yourself as, I'm at home, I'm not going to think about work. No, because deep down, there's a lot of things running in your mind. And research says that 60,000 thoughts are in your mind. Okay, 60. So it will be repeated, right? From the 60,000, 85% is repeated thoughts, which is around 50,000, 49 over 1,000. And from that repeated thoughts, another 70 to 75% is negative thought. Okay, so imagine you just have an argument with your colleague or with your boss. That negative thought will be playing in your mind over and over again. And this is what you will translate when you have a meeting or when you communicate with people, right? It just snaps. So you need to be mindful, you need to understand. And this is what also I say, that if you don't take care of your mental well-being, you will have a lot of accident. You will ignore some of the hazard, even though, you know, you don't, definitely you don't want to do it, but without you realizing, you are going to get into that lane if you are not mindful and be present. All right. And another thing that I like to touch is minimize burnout. Why burnout? We don't understand that we all have a certain limit. We have a certain threshold that we can take, especially in education. Like when you guys are in this session right now, we cannot overfeed you with information, because then it will be overflow and you might not learn a lot of things that you're supposed to learn. So the idea is to give you lesser, because then you have the gap to process those information. All right. So imagine if you at workplace, you've been giving a lot or you've been hearing a lot without processing, it will bring harm, because then the mind will go on the overactive mode where you'll be overthinking. All right. So the causes of burnout, it can be lack of control. When we talk about lack of control, it can be like, you know, employee don't really understand the responsibilities. All right. And when you talk about the safety aspect, why you need to have the harness, why do you need to make sure that don't touch a live wire, why do you need to know how to use the fire extinguisher or AED, right? How do you sit ergonomically at your office? Okay, so all this will influence. If you don't give these resources, employee might not know how to do it. And when it prolongs, this is where it will create unbalanced mental challenges in your mind, okay? And you will display that externally. Another thing that will create burnout is where you have unclear job expectation. You're supposed to do something, end of the day, you are given something else. All right? So you need to understand that. Okay. Another thing that you need to understand, we are all different. So when we are different, we have different personality, different way of understanding. All right? And when we talk about learning, it can be visual learning, kinesthetic learning, audio learning. So we need to understand what works best for us. So by understanding what works best for us, that's where we are able to manage our mental well-being. All right. Another thing that we see, that most of the time when someone being promoted, okay, and then when they are at this level, they are able to perform, they're able to reduce risk, they are able to get, you know, their KPI all done. But the moment they are being promoted, they feel that it's unfit. They feel a lot of pressure. They feel a lot of stress. So what happened in that gap? Because in organization, some of it where I go in and give consultation and all that, they don't address, because they think if this employee is fit, when they are being promoted, they should automatically know what they're supposed to do. All right. So this is where, when you don't understand, it will create more risk. All right. And another way that you can look at it, extreme activities. Extreme activities, I can share one. You have a break. All right. So you have a break if you managing heavy machinery. All right, so you have an 1 hour break. In that 1 hour break, what are you actually doing? Do you really take a break, or you use your mobile or any other gadgets to go through social media? All right, so you need to understand that, because that 1 hour break is for you to have a good rest so that you are able to function. But during that break, you are doing so many different activities. When you go back to work, you will go through a lot of, especially when you see someone post interesting stuff, happy stuff where you are unable to do it, it will start to be negative in your mind. So you need to understand that. Just hold on for a minute, yeah? Okay. So the next thing that you need to look at is, how do I promote positive, safer workplace? So by having an open and honest conversation, okay, when you have an open and honest conversation about mental health, it helps your employee to know that they are.
That's the thing, that why we need to establish a core competencies, and by having the final documents, right? The final, what are the core competencies within Asia? We should use this, right, and bring back to our countries, and propose this to our government, to the government, and to our university. This is the need. This is the minimum requirement for any universities, for any safety practitioner, based on the consensus of all the federated members of economic society in Asia. So that's the thing, because for me, when we come out with the module, right, we wanted that this to be sent to the accreditation body of a program. For example, if you are in the bachelor's program in safety and health, or bachelor's program in economics, right? What are the minimum module? What are the right module that they need to have? Okay, rather than just based on the assumption of these are the requirement, but this is the one. When we propose this one, we propose the new module, it should be used by every country members. Right. So just to share with you some of the idea at that time, while we're discussing about what are the framework, okay, that need to be included within the framework of education economics in Asia. They include, I think, for one of the foremost is physical economic. The need for us to look at cognitive economics, environmental economics, system organization, psychology, which is very important, and not but least is experimentation methods and tools, in which every of you as a safety practitioner need to use this in terms of the tools for us to do the assessment. So these are some examples also in terms of competencies, that we have the physical and system economic, and also others that I've shown you earlier at the previous slide. So, all right. So what I have to do? So it is not an easy job. I've been doing this, trying to work on this since 2019. And actually, we have already have, I'll show you a little bit on the result. And we started to do this back in 2018. And we work on trying to compile every country members, right, in terms of what are the level of education for their diploma programs, for their OSH programs, for their engineering program. What are the basic topics of courses covered within their university and their countries? So we have that in 2019. We had the meeting and we had the workshop in Taiwan, and we had some brainstorming in English. That's where we have some difficulty of trying to standardize, trying to list what are our topics that to be included, and also we try to propose standardization on the curriculum. And I think we already proposed this when we had a meeting in India on the module that should be taken into to become to have in economic education, right? And then currently that we are still stuck, all right, that we haven't done is developing standard cost outline, proposing new curriculum for each country bodies, and implementation for standards. That's why you haven't seen this. We haven't proposed this simply because that it should be at least when we propose our master plan is to do this in 2020. So due to our current COVID, so we are not able to conduct any direct brainstorming, but we still have time for us. We propose this, talking about the education again in the Philippines. Just if I can share with you, we have to the organizer, we're going to have economic conference in Philippines somewhere in November, and we will discuss this again to look at how we're going to go about coming out with the standard professional education for economics. That is for education. And the one that, as I mentioned to you earlier in terms of certification, is that we would like at the end, after we already finished looking at education level, we want to compile, we want to work out in terms of standards certification for all Asia countries. So that is the final objective. After we have finished our education, we want to look whether or not we are able to standardize certification for Asia, right? Meaning that again, in Malaysia, in India, in Japan, in Taiwan, in all Asia countries that is a federated member under ACED. So we want to compile the different professional certification, right? We do brainstorming, and we want to, at the end of the day, we want to execute, okay, a ACED professional certification, okay, and we want to propose that certification to be used to each of the country members, to the relevant ministries. That's what we are trying. Our end goal is to ensure that every countries that is accredited members, when you have this certification, you can bypass your own local certification. Like you can bypass our Malaysian certification, you can bypass your Japanese and your Korean certification. So just to share with you the outcome from our meeting in Taiwan. So we from all our discussion, we already break down into specific domain that is physical, cognitive, and also organizational. And what are the topics within physical for occupational safety and health practitioner? For industrial engineering, what are the topics to be covered under physical, cognitive, and organizational as a product in mechanical product engineers, and for physical therapists, because we have a big range of work within economics. And countries like, I think in India, they have a lot of, that is one of the things that they want to emphasize, that physical therapists work a lot in India as economists. So those are kind of basic education courses that should be taken under the specific domain. However, in any of these, what they call that field, either you are OSH practitioner or industrial engineer, you should have some common skill of statistics, right? Design thinking, system approach, and human-centered design. And also one of the most important thing is research method, because for us in economic research methodology, the right research methodology will give you the validated result. We verify your result, and you are doing your experiment or your testing is conduct in a valid way. And I think this is going to be my final slide. And also that's one of the way that we are putting it. And also within that, we also break down in general that physical, connective, organizational, and also what are related to all in terms of the guideline that we need to have within countries. Now here, when we discussed this earlier within our society members, we were thinking of looking at a very specific one, meaning that if you're talking about agriculture or talking about anthropometry, we want to talk about a very detail of each subtopic. But eventually, we decided that we do not want to go to much detail. So we let every country to think about themselves what should be covered under each of their country needs and requirement. But the title, the big title, we already have separate them so that each country knows that if you want to come up with a degree program in economics, for physical economics, what are the minimum requirement that you need, and what for cognitive training, what are the minimum requirement that you need, and so on. For organizational and those that relate for all the three: physical, cognitive, and also organizational economic. All right, so I don't want to take a lot of my other time because I think we already have 1:30. My time should be finishing at 1 o'clock. So thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry that I take other people's time. So so any question, if you have, maybe you can send it through the organizer, right? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Shamsul. So we wait for 1 minute, see if there's any questions from the floor. So if there are any questions, we would appreciate if you switch on your mic and ask questions before we conclude. Is there any? I believe
we have a question from Shatira. Shatira, she have a question.
Since lighting and heat are under economic guidelines, as you mentioned earlier, does we need to do economic risk assessment or HIRAC for these two?
Okay, at least, well, okay, the lighting and heat, what we have to do is that HIRAC is still needed, because if you look at our current Malaysian guideline, that HIRAC is one of the way that we look whether or not there is economic risk or not. So once you identify there is economic risk, and you have, then if there is, based on your team or yourself has identified there is economic risk, then you have to conduct your initial error. So once you conduct your initial error, from your initial error, and if you found there is evidence of lighting issues, all right, such as inadequate lighting, or there is exposure to heat, then you have to conduct your advanced error that use the method within the lighting guideline, all right, and also for the heat, and also for heat. So meaning that you have to look at the steps, and you have to use your HIRAC first as a route for you to start to kick off your initial error assessment. Then eventually you have to do your advanced using your guideline of heat stress management and also lighting.
All right, thank you. Shatira, are you here? Is the speaker answering to your questions?
Yes, I'm hearing. Thank you.
Yeah. So you have any further questions to ask?
No, that's all for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, thank you very much for Professor Dr. Shamsul Bahri for speaking with us and spending out your time with us. All right, so should I pass the mic over to Mr. Wong for the closing? So while waiting for Mr. Wong, can all of you switch on the video so that we can see your faces? All right, thank you very much for cooperating with us. All right, so Mr. Wong, so it's your stage.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
First of all, on behalf of MOSPA, I would like to thank the organizer, Social Resource Development Institute of Hong Kong, SRDI, and SHEA Academy and Consultancy, Malaysia. Okay, also the rest of the co-organizer, especially MOSPA and Institute of OSH, Singapore branch, CSI University, the Hong Kong Institute of Circle of Works, and the Hong Kong Development Professional Association, and also our supporting organization, International Powered Access Federation, World of Safety and Health Asia, Macau Institute of Science and Technology, School of Liberal Arts, Hong Kong Institution of Engineers Safety Specialist Committee, and authorized signatory of Technical Director Society, Material Stack Company Limited, an international professional safety and environment of solution company, and the Chartered Institute of Highway and Transportation, Hong Kong region. Okay, thank you everyone for this webinar, Asia Pacific OSH practice number 6, by the team of mainstreaming OSH culture from industry and education. First of all, I would like to thank the speaker, the first speaker, IR Ibrahim Md from the Director of Department of Occupational Safety and Health, Selangor, Malaysia. He mentioned about the workers' insurance compensation from SOCSO, and also the systematic approach of a national policy by Tun Dr. Mahathir Muhammad, the PM, the former PM, and also the reduction of the Selangor fatalities. Secondly, I would like to thank the second speaker, IR Dr. Gordon Leung, from the chairman of the Chartered Institute of Highway and Transportation, Hong Kong branch. He talked about the health benefit of adopting the warm mixed asphalt for road construction in Hong Kong. So thanks for sharing all these valuable knowledge. So by mixing, the temperature can be reduced by 20 to 40 degrees Celsius. So the difference between film and odor. So thanks for the information provided to us. And the third speaker being the professional, Mr. JC Sekar from Singapore IOSH branch. So he talked about the redefining the workplace safety for resilience operations. So he mentioned the stress on capacity and the controls and competency. So resilience operation is not by accident. Safety is not the absence of incident or accident. It is the presence of the 3 C's, which is the capacity, control, and competency. He also mentioned about the 5 M's, money, manpower, material, machine, and methods. Thanks for the information given by Mr. JC Sekar. And also the fourth speaker is the Dr. Sangeeta Kaur from EJA, which is the Emerging Journey Asia. So she talked about the positive mental well-being promotes safer workplace. So, by having good and bad stress, so which promotes safer workplace. Being conscious, increase employees' productivity, and be connected, be active, take notice, keep learning, and also give. So she also mentioned about the stress, sports, which is which means a sports, travel, rest, eat, sing, and speak. So thanks, Dr. Sangeeta, for the information and the short chat among us. And also, last speaker, Professor Dr. Shamsul Bahri, Haji Muhammad Tamrin. He talked about the economic education in Asia, the current assessment methodology, future competency as assessor, and international certifications. So he talked regarding the different needs to synchronize the ACED. So this is the final objective of in all Asian countries for Malaysia. So thanks for all the speakers. And on behalf of MOSPA, I again thank you everyone for the participation for this webinar, Asia Pacific OSH Practice number 6. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wong, for the closing remarks. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for those who are still staying with us, for spending your valuable time with us throughout the whole sessions. And hopefully you found this webinar to be valuable and be able to leverage the information provided to help you in gaining insight as well as growing your business or your career. Well, special thanks to all the speakers, or the 5 speakers, for spending their time, their valuable time to speak with us on the subject, right? So we hope that everyone at least learned something, right? And we're moving forward to seeing you at the next event, so which will be on the 10th of October. It's on the Saturday, so the time will still remain the same. So that will be our 7th times of WAPOSHP. So we hope to see you again over there. And we truly appreciate your support, especially to those who join our sessions today and never miss out one of our sessions. And please let us know if you have any question and feedback. Please like our Facebook and drop your comments. Drop your comments if you have any. All right. If you like it, then you just click the button of share to let those who are interested and may join us on the next sections. So this is a QR code. So we appreciate if you scan it. Take out the phone and scan it. I'll give you another 30 seconds so before we move on to the other side. So if you have any queries about the certificate, you have any questions about the program, and you have any constructive ideas on or even you would like to speak in this webinar, so please drop us an email at office@srdi.hongkong, all right, or visit the website, or you may reach us more conveniently or more we are more interactively in Facebook, right? So for this program, we have 5 CCD points approved by CIDB, right? So whereas for CEP, still in the process, and basically we get an unofficial announcement by JKP that basically they have agreed to provide us 8 CEP points for those who have joined us the full sessions for August session for the last month and also this month, right? And meanwhile, the certificate will be issued out once we got the approval. Just be patient on that. So probably we will be following up with the JKP on that. As for CPD points, so for those who are joining us, so you have automatically credited with 3 continuing professional developments, 3.5 hours. So thank you everyone. So anybody want to speak? Okay.
All right, Lim, I think thanks a lot. You might to stop share your screen. So hi everyone, just turn on your video so we can take a last photo for today's section. Right, do you mind? Thumbs up. Stay safe, guys. Right, thanks a lot for participation today.
All right.
Hope to see you on October 10. Thanks a lot.
All right, see you again.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
See
you.
you in October. Yeah, see you in October.
See you next month.
Sure.
See you next month.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
10th of October.
Thank you, everybody.
10th of October.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
See you next month.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.